Hey y'all, it's Aunt Kathy again. Is the world ending? Thanks to the Israeli airstrikes on Iran, I've been getting this question from some of you, so let me be clear. The answer is no, but let's interrupt our videos about building new mythology to talk about the end of the world. Why does Grandpa believe in the apocalypse? Also, some of you watched Tucker Carlson's interview with Ted Cruz. You've asked whether Christians have a moral obligation to support Israel no matter what. We'll put those questions together and answer them. First, if there's anything I want you to take away from this video and the others, it's this. Don't let religious nuts destroy your life or the world around you. That end of the world claptrap is absurd and unhealthy. Listen, y'all know that I understand how tricky it is when your religion is tied up with your entire identity, your community, your family, your heritage. It feels scary to pull at even one thread of doubt because we were taught never to question what we're told. But if you want to help solve problems in this world instead of just being a problem that needs to be solved, you have to get comfortable asking questions. It's scary to doubt at first. Expressing doubts cost me most of my community. But I didn't lose my faith. I became stronger and a new community found me. Back to your questions and my experience with the apocalypse, which is best summed up with this story. My grandma in Amarillo used to teach Sunday school, and she loved the end times. The end times. As a kid, your Uncle Chris used to sit with her while she would preach from a 12-foot-long, 3-foot-high mural, which showed every step of the apocalypse in vivid detail. She hand-painted dragons with a bunch of heads, the 4 horsemen, the Whore of Babylon, all the hits. I wish we still had it. He says it was an impressive work of folk art. Grandma was convinced that the rapture would happen 40 years after Israel was founded, which would have been 1988, and that didn't happen. Her next target, naturally, was the year 2000. Again, no. Nothing has ever failed as reliably as the end of the world. It won't happen tomorrow or the next day. It ain't coming. So all this noise y'all hear about the rapture and the tribulation and the Antichrist, where did it come from? You never would have heard of this nonsense if it wasn't for the religion of the slavers we talked about back in episode 14. The end of the world as you know it was invented in the mid-19th century by a guy named John Nelson Darby. After falling off a horse and getting a serious head injury, he started conjuring weird and colorful end-of-the-world scenarios. In short, Darby was convinced that Jesus was coming and the world was ending very soon. He made up a timeline of events necessary for the apocalypse. One of the most important events on that timeline was for the Jews to return to Palestine and establish a new state called Israel. Talk to a Christian almost anywhere in the world in the 18th century and they wouldn't have any idea what the rapture or the tribulation was. Still today, outside of evangelical circles, none of this end-of-the-world stuff has any meaning. Darby made it up. But why did it spread? Why have you heard of it? Darby remained a fringe figure until his ideas were picked up in the southern U.S. after the Civil War. A former Confederate soldier named Cyrus Schofield took over a church in Dallas in 1883. From there, he spread Darby's end-of-the-world stories in the South, where they took off like wildfire. Schofield turned the apocalypse into some rockin' science fiction and built a huge audience. The apocalypse was great entertainment. Apart from being fantastic fun, why were the end times so popular in the post-Civil War South? Probably 2 reasons. First, and most importantly, the rapture was great for the former slavers who were rebuilding their power. It conditioned Christians to ignore the injustices around them. For them, the world was a teardown, just waiting for the bulldozer. Exactly the attitude the former slavers needed from the Christians in order to restore their oppressive regime. The second reason is that the mythology of end times religion made a lot of sense to Southerners. Y'all may not know this, but almost all of your ancestors were on the wrong side of the Civil War. Many of them had been slavers. My grandma's grandfather was a Confederate soldier in North Carolina. Their family lost everything in the war. End times preaching spoke to Southerners because it reflected their experience. They had lived through an apocalypse. All this end times nonsense had become so wound up in the religion of the slavers that's now written into the mythology of white supremacy. White people with very little connection to religion often know details of end times theology and even speculate on whether certain political figures are the Antichrist. On that subject, I've got a funny challenge for you. Those of you who are pretty familiar with all the different so-called signs of the Antichrist, try this. Go see how well Donald Trump fits into end times preachers' descriptions of the beast. Watch how this goes over with your most religious relatives. And what about the Israel thing? Why is Ted Cruz muttering nonsense about unconditional support for Israel? Well, those end times preachers we were just talking about helped create Israel. End times preachers in the US and England believed that creating a Jewish state in Palestine was important to bringing about the apocalypse. They called themselves restorationists, not Zionists. Their belief that a Jewish state could be established in Palestine was politically influential in the 19th century, decades before modern Zionism took hold in modern Jewish life. The notion expressed by Ted Cruz that Christians should always support Israel has no biblical basis, but it makes a lot of sense when you understand where Christian Zionism comes from. Zionism for Christians has always been about bringing the apocalypse as quickly as possible. So, in short, please ignore anyone yelling at you about the end of the world. They're always wrong. They've always been wrong. And you're only hearing about this stuff today because it fits so well into slaveholder religion. Also know that bad religion can have some powerful outcomes in the real world. Whatever may be happening today in Israel or Iran may not relate to the biblical apocalypse, but it has potential to wreak havoc in the real world that we'll have to deal with for decades. Poor choices can have terrible consequences. Jesus isn't coming to save us from the damage his followers create. You guys take care and take care of each other.